and welcome back to Otaku no Video. As always, thank you very much for joining me for my review of Sky Blue, also known as Wonderful Days, a Korean anime film from 2003. Now, I'm probably already getting some raised eyebrows from some people for that last sentence. First off, there's a question of whether Korean animation is technically anime. Fine, whatever. Until a better term comes along, I'm going to use the word anime. I can understand either way, but it's anime. Secondly, you may be wondering what Korean animation? Well, one of the little secrets of Japanese animation is that for the past decade or two, most of the grunt work of Japanese animation has been farmed out to South Korea. So there's long been this desire by the Koreans, South Koreans at least, to prove that they're as good as the Japanese at animating, because they've been doing it for a couple of decades now. So this film, Sky Blue, was meant to be kind of the shot heard around the world for South Korean animation, to show that the South Koreans could make a film on par with Akira, or Ghost in the Shell, or any other given big name anime film. And indeed, it has something of an original Ghost in the Shell movie feel, or Blade Runner feel to it. There's a lot of CGI that is blended into the animation quite seamlessly, actually. I was quite impressed with that. And clearly the animators have learned a lot from Japanese animators. For example, dialogue sequences use relatively straightforward animation. You know, there's a lot of mouth and jaw movement, but not a lot of full character animation during regular dialogue scenes. Just some shifting here and there. Enough to get across what it needs to be. It's not cheap. This is clearly a high-budgeted film. But the conversation scenes don't use animation where they don't need to. The action animation in general works very well. And now it lacks some of the crazy dynamism of Japanese action animation, where characters will go through these kind of over-the-top movements. Think of like a Naruto movie, things like that. But this isn't a Naruto movie. It's a more constrained film, much like the original Ghost in the Shell film, actually, where characters aren't doing crazy things most of the time. So it actually works for the kind of story they're trying to tell, which I'll get to in a second. And the visual feel to it is actually, again, constrained and very carefully done. This feels like a film. There's a lot of attention paid to color. Some shots, most shots actually, are dominated by a particular color or color scheme, maybe a dingy yellow or a strong blue. And there's just a lot of attention to making those shots be as effective as possible in and of themselves and integrated with the rest of the film. And there are a lot of shots that are held for a long time. This is actually a very introspective film, which is great for an action thriller, basically, that they're trying to, in those more quiet moments, really make you pay attention to what's going on. I was actually surprised rewatching it recently, realizing that there are some really slow sequences, and it doesn't make the movie feel like it drags out. It makes it feel like you're just appreciating what's going on. It gives you breathers, and it gives you time to really think about what's been happening in the film and what's going on right now. Now, because this is an introspective film, and because the characters are pretty quiet people and rather introspective people, and since this is an action story, there's not much in the way of depth of characters. There's just no time and no way to get those characters to really talk a lot. But what we get is very, well, dramatic, maybe even melodramatic a significant number of times. But again, this is an action story, so the characters feel things deeply. There are big things happening, and it works. It works for what it needs to do. And actually, I want to praise the filmmakers for the fact that for a movie like this, you want more than a simple scene to scene to scene to scene storyline. But you don't want so many plot threads that you just get lost in them, and one appears and then disappears, and you drop them, and you can't do justice to a huge number of plot threads in a single film. And Sky Blue manages to have just enough plot threads to make it interesting and to kind of keep you guessing about things without overwhelming it with too much stuff. Indeed, the overall structure is taut and very carefully structured. And I think careful is the catchword, the underlying byword of this film. The filmmakers are obviously trying to make this film really work in every way, in every shot. And it's just wonderful seeing a film that is thoughtful, where thought was put into where characters are, why they're showing things, stuff like that. Now, no, it's not as thoughtful as the best in film, but it's certainly better than the vast majority. Anyway, and this is all set in a world that is carefully structured and carefully constructed to highlight certain themes and metaphors. It's set in a world of technological elite who live in a city that is actually run off pollution. Pollution got so bad they turned it into an energy source, which means that now they have to generate a lot of pollution to keep the city going. And this means that those outside the city are downtrodden. And so there's a lot of those sort of themes going on. Is it realistic? No, but it's not trying to be. Indeed, the whole thing actually reminded me a lot of Shakespearean plays, both in the sense that the characters are, there are a lot of relationships that kind of shift, and you have kind of the star-crossed lover thing kind of going on there. Again, sort of Shakespearean-like. But also, Shakespeare plays aren't trying to be exactly accurate to their setting. Hamlet is not a precise simulation of the Danish royal court system. It's meant to be a metaphor for various things. And same thing here. In other words, don't look at the world and the setting and expect it to be an accurate vision of the future. It's not trying to be that. It's trying to say things. And in doing so, it creates a film that's more interesting than it would be if it was just a simple action story set in a sleek future, which is a good thing. And this is supported with gorgeous music. It actually feels a lot like Kenji Kawai's work on the original Ghost in the Shell. Interesting. Anyway, so it feels kind of weird and off-kilter, while also feeling very large and just big in general. Voice work is also effective. I listened to the Korean dub, and I'm not at all familiar with any Korean voice actors, but they certainly were accurate to their role. Quiet people were quiet, big people were big. It all worked. So those are my thoughts on Sky Blue, or Wonderful Days. And if you'd like to check it out, please head by streamsuki.com to see if it's streaming somewhere legally on the net. Streamsuki is a directory of legal anime streams. And if you want to talk about anime like Sky Blue or other interesting anime and manga, please stop by my website at otakunovideo.net, where we have a forum and a chat room and all sorts of places where you can talk about such stuff. So hope to see you there. Thanks for watching. And until next time, yes, I work for NASA.